morning, everybody. Sorry to interrupt your greetings and conversation. We are trying our hardest in the new year to start on time so that we have time at the end for people to ask enough questions of the panelists. Before we begin, I did want to know if there are any public announcements. I do want to make one announcement to the board members, and that is that we are not having a board meeting for the board members next Tuesday, as we normally do. Our next board meeting for members of the board will be in February. I do think I want to give an opportunity to people to make public announcements that are of interest to the general community. Is there anyone here who'd like to do that? Let me pass you the mic.
Good morning, everyone. I want to make sure that everybody is aware of a big bond coming up for the school district, capital infrastructure improvement bond, a very important vote coming up February 5th. If you do not already have information on the bond, please make sure to go on the district website, which is mamkschools.org. And also, if you have not already signed up for district emails, please make sure to do so. You can go on the website, mamkschools.org, and go on community, and then there's a sign up right there. Or you can go on district news and sign up for district emails, because we've been sending out a lot of emails about the bond. It is, like I said, capital infrastructure, major improvements at all 6 schools, including plumbing, electrical, mechanical, roof repairs and replacements, asbestos abatement, updating of fire alarms, security systems. So all major work that needs to be done that has been deferred, much of it has been deferred previously. It was identified in the 2015 building report, if not prior to that, building committee report. So again, please make sure that you are informed. It's a large bond, $49 million capital improvement bond, no tax impact until the 2021 school year. And then after that, as a result of the bond, with debt cycling off from previous bonds, it's about $14 per $100,000 assessment the first year that it has impact. So again, any questions, you can always email the Board of Education, or you can email myself at dmanetta@mamkschools.org. So thank you.
Were there any other community announcements? One more?
Okay, hi. I'm with the AARP Tax Aide program, and we do taxes for low to middle income people throughout Westchester. We have a location at the Mamaroneck Public Library on Fridays, and Tuesdays and Thursdays at the New Rochelle Library and at other libraries around the county. So if anybody knows people who need their taxes done, it's free. We can actually do anyone's taxes, but we can't do things like rentals and stuff like that. So just as a general word of thing, that we have the AARP Tax Aid program starts February 1 and goes till April 15th.
Thank you.
Oops.
Is that it for community announcements? Okay. We're going to, before we move on to our program, which is going to be about approaching zero waste, and our panelists will be introduced by our board member, Ann Butkowski. I think we're going to have Jeff do his tidbits, okay? Thank you.
Seems like I haven't been. Ooh, I got a cold. Whoa. Yeah, stay over here. I don't want to ruin the town's administration here. We know Larchmont Village as the automotive village of the country. Detroit is the Motor City, and if you recall my past tidbit, Larchmont Village is the automotive village of the country because we had two things happen, and I'm going to give you the third. We had in 1900 one of the first automotive races in the country by Albert Bostwick. They raced from the starting line was at the Waldorf Astoria, thank you, and the finish line was at the front gate of the Larchmont Yacht Club. They had 15 automobiles. The race was won in 1 hour and 17 minutes, which you probably couldn't do today. They then went to Mr. Bostwick's Orietta home, where they celebrated with 10 barrels of 3 barrels of oysters, 300 pounds of lobsters, 250 pounds of bluefish, 400 ears of corn, 1 barrel of sweet potatoes, 1 barrel of white potatoes, 500 hard crabs, 1 bushel of onions, and unnamed quantities of champagne and beer. That was number 1. Number 2 was a man named Charles Brady King. I don't know if does anybody remember Mr. King? You don't pay attention to my tidbits. We're going to have a quiz next month, by the way. Get your blue books out. Mr. King was an inventor. As a young man of age 23 in the Chicago World's Fair of 1897, I believe, he introduced his first invention, which was a pneumatic drill, used today. He met a man named Daimler, who happened to build an engine, so he built his own engine. Then he built his own car. And then he was the reason why Detroit is named Motor City, because in 1896, he rode around the city in his car. There was a young fellow riding behind him in a bicycle. Mr. King became his mentor. That young fellow was Henry Ford. Mr. King was from Larchmont. He was responsible for rehabbing the stables at the end of Beach Avenue into a one-family home. Everybody knows it as the Please Don't Eat the Daisies house, but it was really Mr. King who did that at 1 Beach Avenue. So what happens now? The third thing in Larchmont is there was a man named Singer in the 1800s who made a hell of a lot of money. Isaac Merritt Singer. Obviously, he made money how? There you go. He gained his fame and wealth from the sewing machine. At his death, his vast fortune was divided among his female associates and a healthy number of their progeny, one of whom was Isaac Augustus Singer, produced through his relationship with Mary Ann Foster. Well, his grandson, Charles King, teamed up with a guy named Henry Palmer, and they developed an automobile, and it was the Palmer Singer automobile, and it was one of the nice automobile companies in the first part of the 20th century. And they made the Palmer Singer Skimabout, which was a very famous car, offered for $1,950. They made the PS Town Car for $3,100. The Singer Motor Company was formed in 1914 and had its headquarters in Portchester, New York. And then a plant in Long Island City. But the key is that Mr. Singer, Senior and Junior, and their partner H.R. Callison all lived in Larchmont. The Singers lived at the corner of Chestnut and Prospect Avenue. So this is the third instance of serious automotive beginnings in the village of Larchmont. Thank you. And next month, a quiz.
Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate that. So I'm going to turn the program over to Ann Betkowski, who, along with her committee members, have organized our illustrious group of panelists. And I think it's really, really interesting. And I'm very glad that we have this opportunity to present this to you.
Thank you, and good morning. Our topic for today is zero waste. Three speakers will speak about recycling and purchasing wisely for homes and businesses, composting, changing the way our garbage is collected, and developments at the town and county levels. A handout of tips to get closer to zero waste for homes and business is at your place to take home with you. So please look at that, and it's an easy way to do this at home. To move the community towards zero waste, the voluntary food waste recycling program began in September of 2017. The program encouraged participants to separate food scraps that would otherwise be tossed in the trash to instead be transformed into nutrient-rich compost. As a result, close to 70 tons of food scraps have been diverted from the waste cycle. 70 tons. It's remarkable. Our speakers today are Stephen Altieri, Nancy Seligson, and Khor. Each speaker will present for approximately 10 minutes, and there will be an opportunity for questions at the end of their presentations. Stephen Altieri has been a Chief Operating Officer and Town Administrator of the town of Mamaroneck since 1982. He has extensive experience in municipal finance, budgeting, project management, and capital improvement planning. He is also currently Chairman of the Board of Directors, Public Employee Risk Management Association since 2011, and also serves on the Westchester Refuse District Advisory Board. Nancy Seligson is Supervisor of the town of Mamaroneck since January 2012. As Town Supervisor, Ms. Seligson serves as a trustee of the Westchester Joint Waterworks and the Larchmont Mamaroneck Joint Garbage Commission. She has spent most of her career in environmental advocacy and brings that interest to the town. She also co-chairs Sustainable Westchester, a county-wide environmental nonprofit organization, and the Citizens Advisory Committee of the Long Island Sound Study. Khor is originally from Malaysia. She has a background in city and environmental planning and has been a volunteer with the town of Mamaroneck's Sustainability Collaborative, focusing on Larchmont Mamaroneck's food waste recycling program since the planning stages in June of 2017. She volunteers in promoting zero waste practices in the community, Mamaroneck School District, and St. Augustine Church. She also co-coordinates and teaches an adult ESL program, a volunteer-run initiative at the New Rochelle YMCA. We welcome and thank our speakers for being here and to discuss this important issue. Our first speaker will be Mr. Altieri, followed by Ms. Seligson, and then Khor. So thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. Can you all hear me? I know this isn't for... Well, that you all got up this early in the morning to talk about zero waste and garbage is amazing. I think we were here a few months back and we talked about sewage, so the breakfast conversation just gets better and better. So as the three of us developed the program for today, we thought that it'd be best for me to sort of set the stage about garbage and recycling in the community and in the county. Also, nationally, garbage has become a major topic of discussion. You have two of the largest solid waste companies in the country, both traded on the New York Stock Exchange. You have a whole discussion about recycling going on nationwide, and we're going to get to that in just a minute. Most of you know you put your garbage out and it disappears. So for those of you that don't know where it goes and how it gets picked up, let me try and fill you in on a couple of facts. So the Sanitation Commission was created by the town of Mamaroneck and the village of Larchmont, actually back in 1937. And last year, in 2017, the commission celebrated its 80th anniversary. And it was actually a pioneering event in the area of shared services. Originally created to incinerate garbage. So those of you that have been to our recycling center know there's that big abandoned building with the smokestack that now houses cellular antennas. Well, we used to incinerate garbage back then, and that stopped actually in the late 60s, early 70s. In 1984, the 36 communities that make up the refuse district partnered with Westchester County. And it was all to avert what was becoming a solid waste crisis. The federal government was slowly but surely closing down all of the landfills. The requirements that were being placed on the incinerators for burning garbage just kept growing more and more restrictive. And local governments like Mamaroneck and Larchmont and Scarsdale slowly but surely closed all of their incinerators. The question was, how do we now deal with garbage without there being a crisis? So there was created the Westchester County Refuse District, which, as I said, is made up of 36 communities in Westchester. They formed a consortium that led to the construction of what is called the Willabrator incinerator up in Peekskill. So you put your garbage out, we pick it up, we take it to Mount Vernon. And then after we take it to Mount Vernon, the county trucks it all the way up to Peekskill where it is burned. The incinerator creates steam, and that steam is used to produce electricity for primarily the Peekskill area. So it is a very early form of taking garbage and reusing it for a better purpose. That is creating electricity. Just a couple of items about the commission itself. There are just about 20 employees that collect all the garbage in the town and the village. We are one of the few municipal agencies that collects municipal garbage. Commercial garbage. So we pick up commercial garbage from virtually every location in the town and the village except for some of the larger stores such as Staples, CVS, Stop and Shop, etc. So we'll process somewhere in the neighborhood of 17 to 19,000 tons of material. That's garbage and recycling. And we'll process that each year. We will recycle about 50 to 60% of that material. So the community is made up of very avid recyclers, and that's a tribute to all of you and those that are not here, that we do recycle a large proportion of our garbage. Since 2011, we've actually reduced the amount of garbage produced in the town and the village by just under 8%. Concurrently, we've also increased the amount of recycling by about 15 to 20%. Measuring garbage and recycling, though, has become a little tricky. When we measured recycling back in the 90s, recycling was made up a lot of glass and metal type containers. So since garbage and recycling is always measured in tonnage, the weights look much better. Over time, though, some have said, well, recycling is stagnating because the weights are going down or the remaining level. Well, that's actually not true. But think of the number of glass bottles, glass jars that you use today versus what you may have used 15 years ago. It's a completely different picture now. Virtually everything is made up of plastic. And so we're actually seeing an increase in volume, but it's very hard to measure volume in trucks and trailers, so we don't do that. But this is a community of with a very high recycling rate, and we always rate very well countywide. But we are reaching a tipping point. We are reaching a tipping point in how much we can actually recycle. And so the commission has tried to move to an era, if you will, of reuse. So those of you that have been to the Maxwell Avenue plant know that we entered into a partnership with the Furniture Share House about 4 years ago. The idea being, if you have old furniture that you don't need, it's in reasonably good condition, bring it down, leave it with us, and then we send it up to Westchester Airport, where Furniture Share House is headquartered, and they then give it to low and moderate income families. We also started a clothing and textile recycling program. Again, let's see if we can reuse the material versus disposing of it in one way or the other. What's making this all very important, especially reuse and going to zero waste, which Nancy and Karen are going to talk about, is the fact that we are approaching a recycling crisis. In our wonderful relations with China, they have actually stopped taking most of our plastics. And so nationwide, there is a situation where recycling programs in some cases are being discontinued and the material is going into the garbage. for the simple reason is there is no aftermarket for it. And that's a problem. And again, just enhances the need for zero waste. Now, in the Westchester Refuse District, we are fortunate in that we have always used what's called dual stream recycling. So we ask you to separate your paper and cardboard from your plastics, metal, and glass. And it is the dual stream programs that continue to be able to market their recycling with the greatest return. That is because the material tends to be quite pure, less contaminated, easier to reprocess. In the northern part of Westchester County, those communities that are not in the refuse district encourage single stream recycling because indeed it is easier. Put everything in one barrel and it gets picked up. The problem is single stream recycling has a very large contamination rate. And so the recycling processors tend to turn away that material. So the county is working very hard to make sure that we maintain the dual stream recycling and that we maintain the purity of the material. Let me finish by just talking about what will happen here in 2019. All of the communities that are in the refuse district will be renegotiating their contracts with Westchester County. We all operate under an IMA. That IMA established a long time ago an apportionment of the cost of garbage collection. So if you look at your tax bill, your town tax bill, if you live in the town, or your town and county tax bill, regardless of where you live, you will see a line item for what's called the sanitation district. Well, that's the town's charge to you, and then you will see a charge for the refuse district. Now, there has been some controversy and debate about whether the county should charge the true cost of transporting and disposing a ton of garbage, which right now stands at about $115 a ton. The towns and villages are charged $28.30 a ton. The balance of the cost is borne through the Westchester County tax bill, and it's borne through the and some of it is defrayed from the resale of the recycling material. It's an interesting debate, one that I think will go on this year as the communities renegotiate. The concern is the impact on the municipalities if we indeed need to pay the full cost to dispose of a ton of garbage. On one hand, it is a great motivator to recycling. On the other hand, it's obviously an increased tax burden that affects all the communities. We know that the larger cities in the county would have an even greater objection to it. The agreements all expire in October. We're going to be renegotiating the agreements and hopefully come up with a solution that continues some form of a balance, but in some way also motivates more recycling. So hopefully that's a thumbnail sketch of garbage and how it goes away, and I'm going to turn it over to Nancy.
Thank you, Steve. Now you know more than, I would say, 95% of your neighbors and friends in our community about garbage. And that's a good thing. I want to thank the Summit for having this conversation and topic today because it is one of my favorites, even though I know garbage is not so glamorous. Excuse me. I happen to chair the Westchester Municipal Officials Association this year, and we expect to be a leading voice in the renegotiations with the county because there's so many communities that are interested in those renegotiations on the intermunicipal agreement with the county on the refuse district. I'm going to talk a little bit about our food waste program and tell you how it started in our community. I already knew, being a commissioner on the Sanitation Commission with Mayor Lorraine Walsh, because the two chief elected officials from Larchmont and the town are the commissioners of that commission, that about 30% or more of our garbage waste weight is food. And food is really heavy. Think about it. If you throw away a cucumber, that is all water. And water is heavy. And I know that our waste goes to burn in Peekskill and to create energy. And I know that burning water is not efficient. So it always seemed like a good idea to try and get the food waste out of the solid waste cycle. But I didn't know how to do it. Until one day I saw on the cover of the Journal News a huge article and picture of Scarsdale initiating a food waste recycling program. This made me very excited. I ran into Steve's office with the newspaper where he was apparently trying to hide the article. And I said, "We got to do this." And he said, "I was afraid you were going to say that. I also knew you were going to say that, and I have already called Scarsdale and asked them how difficult this would be." But to Steve's great credit, and all the employees in the town of Mamaroneck and the Sanitation Commission who had to deal with this new initiative, they were up for it. They really were. They were, healthily skeptical, I would say, but also very open to doing it. And that was fantastic, because you really do need, someone in my position who wants to do it, but you need someone in Steve's position and the employees to really carry it out. And you need a superstar volunteer, but I'm going to get to her in a minute. It was close to that same time that I went to St. Augustine's for a party to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the priesthood for the priest, and to present a proclamation, which I usually have to do. And when I got there, I saw that they had all these different waste bins for recycling and reuse, and I couldn't believe it. It looked like they were already starting to do a food waste type recycling in St. Augustine's. So I was really impressed. I got up to deliver my proclamation and say nice words about the priest, but I did say, and I commend all of you on this fabulous waste recycling effort that you're making here. The town is also interested in moving in that direction. After I finished, about 4 women came over to me and were very excited and happy that I had mentioned that, because they were the ones who had put it together. One of those people was Karen Khor, and I asked them immediately, as I want to do, would you like to help us in the town to try and start doing some more zero waste and food waste recycling efforts? And thankfully, they said yes. So that's when I hit pay dirt, because these folks were serious. So Karen really organized and started to manage and grow a group of people that could really help implement this program. We had to work within the town to, of course, figure out what we could or could not do. We had to convince the sanitation employees that this was a good idea. We went and visited Scarsdale, and we literally had field trips to see how they were doing it. They also have 2 superstar volunteers, Ron and Michelle, that have, I really think, been the cornerstones of creating that program. But like Mamaroneck, they also had employees who were open to it and who wanted to make it a successful program. So we had to start figuring out how to encourage people to do this, how to create demand to do this, how to make it easy for people to do this, how to make it so it wasn't going to cost a fortune for the town of Mamaroneck and the village of Larchmont through the Sanitation Commission, how to do this. We had to contact haulers. We had to contact folks who provide the kits that you can buy to be able to do this. And it was a lot of work. As was mentioned earlier, we did recycle over 70 tons of food waste in 2018 through our program. We have over 800 households participating. From my experience as town supervisor, it has truly been the most enthusiastically embraced program in the town. We have people who are so dedicated to it, who feel so strongly about it. And the really cool thing about it is that when you do recycle your food waste, you end up with almost zero waste in your home. Because if you are recycling all the plastic, glass, metal that you can recycle through our regular recycling program, and then remove your food waste, there's very little waste left. And that brings us to the idea of how can we possibly change the sanitation service? Because the holy grail of sanitation service is pay as you throw. Has anyone heard of pay as you throw? Okay, so it sounds pretty easy, and the way it works is that you change your sanitation system so that people buy bags and pay for their waste through the purchase of the bags. Right now, you go to the supermarket and you buy, or CVS, and you buy garbage bags. You fill those garbage bags, you put them in your garbage can, and we pick them up. But the pay-as-you-throw works in the way that you have to buy a special bag. And the special bag would say Sanitation Commission on it. You would be able to buy it at all the same places that you currently buy garbage bags. But you would pay for those bags as your garbage. So instead of costing, $10 for a very large roll of them, you're going to pay per bag. And those bags will determine how much you pay for your garbage. And we would be able to take it out of the tax stream. It would no longer be taxed. It would be a fee, just like we have for several other things like recreation, where if you use the recreation programs, you pay a fee. And if you don't use them, you don't pay the fee. And the reason this is the Holy Grail is because this has been done in many communities throughout the country. You see a dramatic decrease in waste, in solid waste, and a dramatic increase in recycling, because it makes people very, very aware of the cost of their garbage. And if you can already get rid of your food and your recyclable material, as I said, you have very little garbage or trash left. Currently, we pick up trash twice a week and recycling once a week. Wouldn't it be nice if we could pick up garbage once a week and maybe recycling twice a week? Maybe recycling is one day and food waste is one day. There's all different ways to look at solid waste now. And once people become accustomed to really reducing their solid waste, which is what the real goal of all of this is. It isn't to create more recycling. It isn't to create more food waste. It's actually to reduce on the front end all of this waste. Then we're really going to be able to save some money in our community, and we're going to be able to resolve and find solutions for some big problems. So it would help all of us to start practicing all of these efforts. It will improve all the services in the town of Mamaroneck if we can do it. And in general, I think even, as a globe, we're going to have to start really getting serious about this reduction, because as we know, we are really being inundated and destroyed by plastics, especially in the marine environment. We now know that plastic, although it breaks down into smaller pieces, doesn't go away. It's just smaller pieces. And those smaller pieces then get embedded in the sediment of whatever marine environment it's in, or ingested by the marine creatures. So we've got to reduce the amount of plastic that we use. And if we can figure out how to reduce plastic, reduce food waste, reduce solid waste, we're going to be solving a lot of problems in our community. So I am very happy now to, I want to mention one more thing. We are going to have a joint meeting of the two boards of the Village of Larchmont and the town of Mamaroneck to talk about whether we'd like to investigate any ways that we could change our sanitation services, hopefully improving them for everyone, but also getting us to think more about reducing waste and getting even better at recycling. Now I'm going to introduce a woman who really is a superstar, although she is a soft-spoken one, I have to say. Karen Khor has been really the leading volunteer on the food waste effort. And she does a tremendous job, and she works really full-time on it, because it is a big job to manage so many volunteers and manage so much outreach. So I am forever grateful and thankful and appreciative of her. She's going to tell you about some of the work she does and how it reaches out to even more parts of our community.
Thank you, Nancy. That was very kind of you. But as we all know, it also takes a team, right? So I'm just one of many volunteers. Actually, this has really been a broad-based effort including food waste recycling or composting. And some of our volunteers are here from the Larchmont Environmental Committee, from the Town of Mamaroneck Sustainability Collaborative. So it really takes a village to make this happen. And so I just wanted to speak to you briefly today about how I got involved, to add on to the backstory that Nancy spoke to you about, how this program has grown from a volunteer's perspective, and also how you can do this at home, how you can help us join in this effort and making steps towards zero waste, how it's very easy for all of us to be involved, really. Well, I'm a resident of Larchmont. I've been living here for the past 8 years with my family, with my husband Yang and 2 children who are in Mamaroneck High School and in Hommocks Middle School. And how I got involved in this program, how I got involved in food waste recycling really was back in spring 2016. In St. Augustine's, I was part of a Bible study group. We read Pope Francis's encyclical on care for our common home, about taking care of the environment. And we were all very inspired, and it really takes a group, as I say. So we wanted to find a way to put into action Pope Francis's call for us to take care of our environment. And we didn't know what to do. We ended up visiting Westchester Reformed Temple in Scarsdale, where Ron Schulhoff and Michelle Sterling, the 2 instrumental volunteers Nancy mentioned, where they are volunteers, and they're the ones who really started food waste recycling in Scarsdale, and they are instrumental in spreading it to 12 municipalities that are now practicing food waste recycling in Westchester County. Well, thanks to them, they basically gave us an offer we couldn't refuse. They said, you know what, we will coach you, we will help you to get to zero waste. And in the meantime, because we didn't have an easy place to dispose of our food waste and our compostables, they said, we will help you. You can throw your food waste and your compostables at our temple, so you can experience what zero waste events are all about. And once you start that, you'll never turn back. And that's true. Because, so we started doing zero waste events at St. Augustine's Church in January 2017. And we didn't turn back. And, what we mean by zero waste events is that we try to go beyond the regular 3 R's of reduce, reuse, recycle by including composting of food waste recycling as part of the waste disposal. And part of the important thing about zero waste events is having volunteers by the bin stations to guide people in proper separation and sorting of their food waste, including food waste as well as compostables. Now, a lot of us are used to, using disposable serveware at parties, but perhaps some of you are not so familiar that we now have compostable serveware that are made out of plants. So these are very important in zero waste events if you can't use reusable silverware or reusable serveware. So these green utensils are made out of plants, as are these cups, which look like they're plastic, but they have the telltale green stripe, which tell you that they are compostable. So these can all go into the compost bin and convert it into nutrient-rich soil. So the reason why, when I met Nancy in May 2017 and found out that she was interested in starting this program, I was overjoyed because our church had been doing these zero waste events in the past 6 months, and we had been lugging them over to Ron's house, and then he would dispose of them at the Westchester Reformed Temple with their permission, obviously, and with their great generosity, they were taking our food waste and compostables because they had a private hauler taking away their food waste and taking it to a compost facility in Ulster County. So obviously, you know, after 6 months, we realized we really needed a local solution to this. And so thanks to Nancy and Steve, who started the program, it really came in a timely manner. Now, how has this program grown since we started September 17? Well, you know, it's really been a story of collaboration and partnership between residents, you know, who are all here, who have participated, collaboration between residents, the Sanitation Commission, Town of Mamaroneck, Village of Larchmont, Village of Mamaroneck, schools, houses of worship, and community groups. What we have done is, like, from the beginning, we really wanted to go out to the community and make our presence known and provide information about this program and sell these food waste starter kits here to make it easy for people to participate. Although people don't need to use these containers in order to participate. But so we went out to the farmers market. We started in July 2017. Even before the program started, we registered interested participants. Then after the program was launched in September, we had an ongoing table there at the farmers market selling the kits. And then in October, thanks to Steve and the Sanitation Commission, we started a compost drop-off where people could bring their food waste and the compost and drop it off at the market while they were shopping. And this was a very popular program. We would collect up to 3 of 64-gallon barrels, every Saturday from people dropping off their food waste. So we had a presence in the farmers market, but we also went out to community events. So this is all volunteer staffing. So volunteers were at the farmers market. We were also at community events, such as the Memorial concerts, Memorial Park concerts in July, Larchmont Day, to name a few. And we also went out to the schools. We were at the schools providing information, selling kits at Walk to School Week, at Crunchy Carnival. And then another way that we raised awareness was we helped people to organize zero waste events like we had done in St. Augustine's. So we went to other houses of worship like Larchmont Temple. We went to the school carnival in the summer in Chatsworth. We went to there was a zero waste pig fundraiser for the Constitution Park at Larchmont. We helped Sheldrake also make their Earth Day zero waste. So we did this in order to raise awareness about this and also to show people that how easy it was that it could be done. And so from all those community events, basically now, there's been such a groundswell of interest in this. So in May last year, Sanitation Commission started picking up food waste from Murray Avenue School, the first elementary school where the commission started picking up its food waste. And it's now spreading to the other schools as well. So, and this is something that really it's wonderful to see the students really being involved. Like in Murray Avenue School, they have 160 students, the Green Tigers clubs, led by PTA parent volunteers who go out and they are the recycling rangers guiding their peers in proper separation and sorting of waste, including food waste. And in Mamaroneck Avenue School, we have a wonderful story of a 4th grader last year who decided she wanted to start the composting program. She spoke to the principal. She had a bucket of compost at the cafeteria, and she started on her own, solo, 4th grader. I mean, who does that? But, then she galvanized her peers, and it grew to include 4th and 5th graders. Now they're going to be having an assembly to educate 4th and 5th graders about how to separate their food waste, and they're going to be doing composting first with their own compost tumblers in school. But they're hoping that it will also spread to the rest of the school so that everybody can do it. But so, I think this is it's not just it's students. We've had over 120 volunteers involved in volunteering and promoting this, including over 20 students. Many of them high school students. I notice high school students here from the AP Environment Club, or in the students for the Protection of Environment Club, confirmation students, bar mitzvah students, so people from different groups. And so this has really helped in making it happen. And finally, I just want to let you know how easy it is to participate. So I mentioned we have these food waste kits to try to make it easy, and we sell them at the Maxwell Avenue Recycling Center. For those who are residents of Village of Larchmont and Town of Mamaroneck, you can buy it there. Or if you're a resident of Village of Mamaroneck, they started their food waste recycling program in June last year, and you can buy these kits there as well. They cost $20, and it comes with a countertop pail, which you put on your kitchen countertop, and includes a food waste recycling guide that tells you what are all the accepted items and what are not, and the drop-off hours. And it comes with a roll of 25 compostable bags to make the whole process as mess-free as possible. And the way it works is that you collect your food waste here, and by food waste we mean all food waste, including meat, bones, shellfish, spoiled food, leftovers, even cut flowers, and paper towels and napkins. So when this fills up, you transfer it to this larger green bin, which is your storage and transportation bin, and which we recommend that you place in your garage. And for a household of 4, it takes about a week to fill up. And then this is what you take to the recycling center, either at the Maxwell Avenue or Fayette Avenue in Village of Mamaroneck. And you dispose of it in these large barrels, which are at Maxwell Recycling Center. It's at the top of the hill opposite the office. You'll see a big sign that says food scraps drop off with lots of the 64-gallon barrels. And you can just dispose them there. And you need these containers to participate. You can bring your own containers. But so it's very easy. You can buy more compostable bags at the recycling centers as well. And it's just $20. You can also buy each separately if you'd like. So it is, within everybody's reach. And please feel free to ask me if you've got any questions. There's also, we're passing around these jars of compost, one of which is from Hammock's rocket composter. It's on the way to being compost. So one is a finer compost than the other, just so that you have an idea. But if you've got any questions, please feel free to ask me afterwards. I've also got handouts, flyers, more of the food waste guides, and I'm also selling 3 of the kits if anybody would like to buy them. And if I sell them all out, and anybody still wants them, I'd be happy to deliver it to you at your door. If you give me your address and contact information. So this is special offer today. Yes, and just to let you know, the Sanitation Commission has a water container so that you can rinse off your containers at the recycling center too, to make it easy. Okay. Well, thank you for your attention. I hope you will join me in taking steps towards moving towards zero waste.
Let me get sorry. Yeah. So I want to say thank you very much. You made a waste and messy situation fascinating. So I'm very, very thankful. So now we can open up for questions. Oh.
Where does it go once it goes into that bin at the recycling at Maxwell? We put it in that big bin. Where does
That's
it go
right.
from there?
So then it's taken by a private hauler. Suburban Carting takes it to Ulster County, to the Ulster Resource Recovery Agency, which is a compost facility in Ulster County, Kingston, Ulster County.
There is some hope that the County of Westchester is thinking about and exploring the possibility of creating a food waste program in the county. We have Catherine Parker here, our county legislator. Do you want to add anything? Okay, great.
Good morning. So the county certainly has been focused on what we can do to help our municipalities with food waste. And so one of the actions that we took is we went out for an RFP, or a request for proposals, to get a food study done for the county. Because many years ago I attended I don't know, has everybody heard of Federated Conservationists of Westchester County? Raise your hand if you have. It's a great environmental organization, and they had organized what they call the Conservation Cafe on food waste about 5 years ago, and they had representatives from New York State Department of Environmental Conservation talking about food waste in terms of, we really have to be mindful about carbon footprint, and it's great to get a program started, but the more local it is and stays, the better. And so knowing that there's a diversity of communities within Westchester, it's not a one-size-fits-all. And the other issue with that is, having just one centralized location, again, there's even a carbon footprint to that. So that may not be the right footprint. So I'd love to see a show of hands. Who here in the room composts already? And keep your hands up if you're keeping it on your property. That it stays there and it's your mulch. So a few people. So that's really terrific. Really low carbon footprint. So that food study should be completed very shortly, and in fact it's timed because not only are the municipalities going to be talking to the county about their contracts with the county and what are called tipping costs, but Westchester County is also going to be renegotiating its contract with Wheelbarator, the waste-to-energy facility in Peekskill. So that's all happening in 2019, so really important, and it'll be really exciting when this study actually comes out and we can see what the recommendations are for Sound Shore, for Central Westchester, for different municipalities, and for then Northern Westchester. I wanted to just add one point too, and I appreciate Steve doing some of the explanation for the county. As far as recycling and Westchester recyclables go, the market is really still extremely strong. We've been very fortunate. Our people in our Department of Environmental Facilities have done a tremendous job in understanding, again, when there was a lot of talk about single stream recycling, they understood, no, that misses a lot. And, as the better environmental practice, doing dual stream is still very important. Our garbage in Westchester is extraordinarily clean and not contaminated. China's still buying to the tune of, I think last year we achieved $5 million. So I think that's pretty significant. If you think in terms of your tax levy, that's almost 1% of the county tax levy. That is actually offset by what we get for recycling. So that's all really good news too. But I think it's great that there are so many people here that are interested. I just wanted to, add a little clarification, and probably on the county we could talk about this a lot more. Maybe when we have that waste study, Peter McCart, who's our Director of Sustainability for Westchester County, will be invited back. Might be a thought just as a follow-up. But thank you very much.
I was wondering where or how easily purchasable are the recyclable, not the reusable flatware and cups, and do we have some sort of influence on the larger supermarkets and whatnot to perhaps create a special little section so that they're easily noticeable and accessible to people? And so currently, where are they able to be purchased? And only online, I'm told. So
There are some stores that do sell compostables. The Chico's has some. I think Foley's. We had Ellen Martin from the Village of Larchmont Environmental Committee speaking to Foley's, trying to create, trying to get them to provide more compostable items. And we've also talked to the Chico's, but all of even Costco and Stop and Shop have some compostables. The Chinette plates that you see in Stop and Shop, Costco are compostable. But if we're talking about the green utensils, that we get online from Eco Products. And I have a tips sheet. But we now also have a local supplier in Mamaroneck but you've got to buy in bulk. So it's more like for institutions and schools that are interested in buying in thousands. But it's very cheap. The Chico's also, yes. Yes, that's right. That is the next step. Thank you.
Just two little points. I saw the movie Wasted, and I believe it's available through Westchester Library System if you need a little more encouragement to compost your food. Also, in the village of Mamaroneck, there's a man there at Fayette Avenue who even cleans out your bin for you. Okay? So he makes it very, very easy, and that's all I have to say. But do try that movie Wasted. It'll get you motivated.
I have two questions, one for Nancy and one for Steve, a little bit off of just food waste. One is the governor has proposed plastic bags for the whole state. I was going to ask the supervisor and the mayors if they would be willing to write to the governor on behalf of all of us to say that we really, since many of us are already doing that to really push him to do that. And I think everybody here, if you write to the governor, would be a good idea. So that's important. And Steve, my question to you is, a lot of people are still recycling things that aren't recyclable, like plastic bags are in there. We used to have a thing where we didn't pick up if it was incorrectly done. I know you're reluctant to do that, but I wonder if in this time, whether that would be important again to somehow encourage people to recycle properly, particularly because you say we want to keep it. Thanks.
Well, we've been fortunate that the county's been a good partner and has been finding a way to separate it. What we generally will do is we ask our sanitation drivers to keep an eye on it as we see the quantity. If we start to see the quantity go up, what we then start to do is put the oops stickers on the bins to try and discourage it. I would love for no one to use a plastic bag to recycle, but again, it's that balance of getting the people to recycle and then working with the county where they are able to separate out some of the bags.
Yes, we'd be happy to write the governor to encourage him on the plastic bag ban. The town of Mamaroneck is in the middle of working on a reusable bag initiative. Our town attorney is drafting legislation that will propose to ban plastic bags from all, well, I shouldn't say all establishments because there are exceptions and exemptions throughout the system, but most single-use plastic bags would be banned, and there would be a fee imposed on the purchase or use of paper bags in those stores. So to really, really encourage folks to bring their own reusable bags. That is the legislation that is really the cutting-edge legislation right now and has worked in many, many communities, cities, states, and even countries in the world right now. But we are very encouraged that the governor has proposed a ban as well. Yeah. Oh, and we have, actually, if you're interested, We are trying to collect as many signatures as possible in support of that reusable bag initiative, because we know that when we contact Stop and Shop, Walgreens, Trader Joe's, and CVS, we want them to understand that their customers, our residents, want this, that they are your customers and they would appreciate if you move forward with this. So the more signatures we get supporting that, the stronger voice we will have in being able to pass legislation. We have a sign-up form right here. If anyone who hasn't yet signed it could, we'd really appreciate it. Yes, alternatively, yeah, if you don't get to sign that, please send me an email with your name and your support, and we can add that to the list. Thank you.
Hi. Can everybody hear me? Okay. I spent 32 years, most of my career at Consumer Reports, and as you know, we review appliances. So I was wondering what your position is on food waste disposers that get rid of most of your food, so you don't have to take it to the composter.
You mean the disposal, the garbage
Yeah.
disposal in people's sinks?
Yeah.
It's a nice thing, but think about where that goes. We didn't go through that system yet, but as water goes down your drain, or you flush your toilet, or your sinks, showers, and baths, that goes into the sanitary sewer system. The sanitary sewer system goes to a sewage treatment plant. It either goes to New Rochelle Sewage Treatment Plant or one in Harbor Island Park, depending on where you live. The purpose of those plants is to clean that water, so that, because it empties out as effluent into Long Island Sound. The number one problem in Long Island Sound is nitrogen. Trying to remove nitrogen from effluent. It costs gazillions of dollars to remove nitrogen from effluent. Food waste is mostly nitrogen. Food is composed of a lot of nitrogen. So it is better not to put your food down the garbage disposal. That's one reason. The other reason is that it makes the sewage treatment plant work harder because it's got more stuff going into it. And by composting it, or hopefully reducing your amount of food waste, but by composting it, you are transforming it into something useful. So it's better not to use it.
What do we do with all those plastic bags and styrofoam and things that are really going to mess up the world?
Well, unfortunately, right
Or
now,
Omaha steaks with the big boxes of
unfortunately,
styrofoam.
right now, styrofoam, plastic bags need to go into the garbage stream, and ultimately end up in Peekskill, where the materials are incinerated. The city of Yonkers tried a styrofoam recycling program. The market just isn't ready for recyclable styrofoam. So there's, at this point, I'm not aware of a market for styrofoam. Yeah, they can ban it, but there are bans on it, but there is no place to recycle it at this point.
Can I just clarify for the plastic bags, I'm speaking, for the plastic bags, if they're clean, my understanding is you can take them back to the supermarkets. Stop and Shop, etc., have bags, and that would include bags that are part of packaging materials.
We're not sure what they're doing with them, but you can bring them back.
I have two questions for Steve and maybe Catherine Parker. One is, can you speak about the tipping fee and the difference between the fee for organic waste and the fee for incinerator waste, and how right now it favors incinerator waste rather than organic waste? There's a subsidy on trash, the trash fee, as I understand it, and there's no subsidy on the compost fee, and what the county is doing to adjust that and the time frame for that. And then the second question is, can you give us an update on how we're moving towards curbside pickup for compost, which would speed up the adoption of compost composting in the community? Thanks.
Well, I don't want to steal any of Catherine's thunder. I think, though, you know, and Nancy talked about the diversity of communities in Westchester County. To charge the true per ton fee for the disposal of garbage could be a property tax disaster for many communities if they are not able to offset it with the right percentage of recycling. And that's why when I spoke earlier, many years ago and to this day, we've averted a solid waste crisis in Westchester County because of the partnership between the municipalities and the county and that apportionment of the fee. But I do think that is something that is going to be taken up. To my knowledge, there is a partial subsidy on the organic waste. We pay, I think, $21 a ton for the disposal of leaves and branches and all that stuff. And I believe there is a partial subsidy from the county as well for the transportation of that material up to a mulching facility, I believe, in Orange County. So we're going to look at it, but again, that is something that has to be thought of very seriously before we just automatically charge that entire tipping fee to the local government.
I have two questions. First of all, I know some businesses and communities are using the methane that comes out of sewers and garbage to heat buildings and thereby reduce costs and recycle. So are we doing that anywhere? And the second question, as somebody who doesn't compost but would like to, why doesn't St. Augustine's and why can't we use the compost for our own like gardens, and why is it hauled away? Is that too difficult for?
Well, if if household composters are more limited in what they can accept, right? So they, you definitely cannot add compostable utensils and the serveware. But plus it also has to be managed actively to avoid rodents, pests, especially if you're in a school or, although if you do it and you need the right mix of materials to make sure that it's clean. And so it does require a lot of active management. If you can do it, that is great. And I mean, I had it done in my household. We didn't have any problems of rodents and things like that. But again, if you're in a house of worship, it's a different situation, or a school. It just needs constant.
Can I just add what some of us do is compost all the fruit and vegetables, anything that hasn't been cooked in oil or something like that, right in your garden. It's easy. It doesn't attract rodents. You keep some leaves from the fall and you throw that in there. And then I take the fish bones and the chicken bones and the whatever else that takes a lot more time to decompose and has to be in a big pile professionally composted, so that we're trucking a lot less of it. That's easy to do.
Yeah. So we could do both. That'd be great.
Hi, I'm from the Rye YMCA, and I'm working with a group of volunteers to plan a Green Schools conference for this spring. And we'll have 3 panel discussions, one of which will be zero waste, one will be on teaching sustainability in the schools, and the other will be on edible gardens. So if there's anyone here from the schools who's involved in any of that, or anyone who knows someone, I'd love to talk to you afterwards or be in touch. And if anyone here would like to be involved with that effort, please contact me as well. Thanks.
Sorry about that. I wanted to get back to the earlier part of your question about is anybody in Westchester getting their, offsetting their energy costs with the waste to energy, and the answer is yes. Up in the northern part of Westchester, in Peekskill, Cortland, off the top of my head, I know it's a big number. It's in the tens of thousands of households, but I can't give you an exact number because I haven't had that second cup of coffee yet. So apologies on that one. It was also asked earlier about what's called expanded polystyrene, or as many of us call it, styrofoam, why we don't have a recycling program. And the fact is that it's, as we know from our experience with styrofoam, it's an extremely light substance. So when it is used for like packaging materials and things like that, and you get those big blocks of styrofoam, it's practically weightless. So to then try to find a way to store it and sell it, it's nearly impossible. It's, you're right, Yonkers did a program. What we found, and I was sending one of my legislative aides to Yonkers every week on Thursdays before the pickup to take a picture of what was actually in there. And what we found was that trucks from Queens and Long Island were bringing it out from the city to Yonkers, and nobody locally was using this thing. So it was just a real disaster. And I do think last April we introduced legislation at the county banning both plastic bags, again with a fee. And we've had committee meetings. It's been working its way through committee meetings. And we've also had a separate bill on banning expanded polystyrene. So all of that, I think, is coming to a head, which, you know, stay tuned is all I have to say on that. But anyway, to answer some questions.
In addition to reaching out to schools and churches, I would suggest that you reach out to some of the larger co-ops and condos. I think there's probably an opportunity there to do good work from them, but you would need to emphasize the cost savings. I don't think that they're necessarily going to want to cooperate unless there was some benefit for those properties.
Yeah, thank you for, you know, we've had one volunteer from our Sustainability Collaborative who talked to her co-op actually about, you know, gave a presentation about food waste recycling. But of course, it's, you know, it's sort of dependent on, right now it's a voluntary drop-off program. And we have a lot of residents who are apartment dwellers who do it as well. So although people think that, oh, you know, I'm in a small apartment, it's not doable, we actually have a lot of composters who do this in their own homes in the apartments. So it's definitely very doable.
That's it on the...
If you don't have a garage, okay, for the, you know, some people put it in
Use your neighbor's garage.
A closet. It's, and, you know, I know a few people who actually leave it outside and it's okay. I mean, I wouldn't recommend the green one. I mean, I'm leaving it out there if you've got active squirrels. Some people say their squirrels don't get at it, but they don't have a problem. But if you don't have a garage, I guess if you have some kind of a closet, another space where you can keep it. It's made of thick plastic, so it's odor-free, really. Yeah, you don't have odor problem.
I just, no more questions. I want to remind you that if you missed anything, you were busy eating, that you can see this on LMC-TV, and you can stream it. And Dina tells me that Local Live this Thursday has personal trainers and fitness. So in case you overate, watch it Thursday evening.
I want to thank our panelists. We really, we're just closing up. Go ahead.
Sorry, there were a couple of people who asked a question that didn't get answered, and I just wanted to follow up. Is there any chance going forward of people collecting the food waste, a collection of food waste, curbside? Is that at all a possibility in the future?
Oh, here you can.
We are having the joint meeting of the two boards, and that will be one of the things we discuss. So we recognize that that would be the best way to get the most compliance and participation, but it is a matter of cost, and we would have to reorganize our sanitation service at this point in order to put resources toward that.
Thank you. Thank you, first of all, to our panelists. It was a great presentation, and we appreciate your time and your commitment to this. It's wonderful. Thank you to our committee. and Doris. Who else was on the committee? And Karen. It was a lot of work, and we appreciate it. A couple of things. The next meeting that we're going to have is, I think it's February 12th, and it will have to do with substance abuse in our schools and in our community by our young people, what the core problems are, the radar survey, an analysis of it. It's still in its formative stages, but I think it'll be very interesting, and we really would encourage you to come. The other thing is, someplace floating around here, we believe, is a sign-in sheet. We've sort of lost track of it, so if we think we found it now. So if you haven't signed the sign-in sheet, please sign the sign-in sheet. If by some chance you didn't find someone to pay for the breakfast, not you guys, of course, but please make sure that you pay, because they will count the number of people here and we will be charged accordingly. So we don't want to end up, we don't have a budget, basically. Finally, I actually think that's it, but thank you. No. Did I miss that?
Tonight at the Comics Auditorium, there
Yep.
is a special evening on drugs and teens with their brand new statistics from the last 2-year survey that Radar did, sponsored by Radar
You might have
as well.
So tonight at the Comics Auditorium, there is at 7 o'clock an evening about kids, teens, and drugs, and it's going to be based on the most really like a week-old statistic compilation that Radar does every 2 years, and it's done, and it's being compiled, and it'll be talked about tonight. And they also are going to have a very cool thing, which is a sample room that parents of teens could walk through and see what might be telltale signs that your kid is using drugs. So it's an innovative way to wake some of us up, I suppose. So I hope some of you will join us. Thank you.
So thanks very much, and please come back next month, and we'll see you all soon. Stay warm.